As part of your MLB power rankings, which you drop once a week early in the week, and what's the best playoff race in baseball right now? And you ranked all 8 on Labor Day. Now, I want people to go read it, but tell us what you think the top 2 or 3 races are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the NL East first, and I know it's only 2 teams instead of like the AL Central with 3 teams, or the wild cards, which have several teams involved. But, for the Mets and Braves to be a game apart and both on pace to win 100-plus games, with the Braves being the World Series champions, the Mets with that huge payroll and the big expectations and the 10.5-game lead going into June. Unfortunately, they only play 3 more times, but it is the second-to-last series of the weekend, so I don't mind spoiling it and saying that's number 1. And NL Central, I will say, since I know I'm in the St. Louis area here, it's pretty low now. Not that it bothers anybody in the St. Louis area that it's low. Like, you wouldn't have thought a month ago it would be ranked only ahead of the 2 West races, but that's where it is because there's just not a lot of intrigue left there. Cardinals, as I think it was late May when the Brewers were winning and they were kind of overwhelming betting favorites, and I said, hey, this is a good time to get on the Cardinals here because they have a much better roster. They're going to get better as the season goes. I didn't think it would be this much of a runaway, so I'm not going to act like I knew everything there. But I suspected the Cardinals were the better team, and they're way, way, way better right now.
Well, I will vouch for that because I read you, and I remember you writing that, but I'll vouch for that because you have said that at least 2 times, maybe 3 times on this very show. Whenever I said – I usually ask you by saying, okay, what is your updated view of the NL Central race? And you would always remind me, well, wait a minute. I said way back when the Cardinals were going to win this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm backing you up on that. Not that you need it. The other thing, and we don't have to get into how you ranked it, but I obviously the American League East is really getting kind of crazy, and their lead has been dwindling. And I just wonder if you have a thought about, are they really going to blow the division title, or do you think they'll hang on?
In all likelihood, probably not. I mean, it's still with them being able to salvage that game Sunday in Tampa Bay. And if anybody was watching, the Rays had the tying run on third and the winning run on second, and there was a bad strike 3 called in the game. If the umpire made the correct call, who knows what would have happened? If the Rays would have won that game, it would have been 3. That's a lot different. But for them to get it back up to 5, and then they won on Monday, they're probably going to be okay, odds are, because they built themselves up so much credit. But as you just alluded to a second ago, there's only so much Judge can do on offense. And with Rizzo going on the IL today, LeMahieu's been banged up for a while. Torres hasn't been worth much for a while. Giancarlo Stanton, he got back from the injured list a couple weeks ago, but he's been terrible ever since then. Donaldson's not very good anymore. It's like a one-man show on offense for the most part, and it's a great show, He might hit 63, 64 home runs, but it's baseball. It's not basketball. There's only so much one guy can do. Their pitching's been doing a lot of holding them up. It'll be interesting to see where they end up and how they fare in the playoffs, but there's no reason to have much confidence in them right now. The only reason I'm saying that they're going to hold on in the division is because they have a 5-game lead, and that's just over the course of a month. 5 games is a big, big gap.
Yeah, and the FanGraphs playoff odds, they're still way up there. In fact, I just closed that file. I don't know why, because I'm being stupid, I guess. No, here it is, 84.6% probability of winning the division, the Yankees. But Aaron Judge, I got to say, hats off. I mean, it's just a phenomenal job, and it'll be interesting to see what happens if they do blow it. I don't think they will. I agree with you, but I don't know whether this means that bye-bye manager, bye-bye Brian Cashman. I just don't know. It's an interesting situation. Are you surprised by the Cleveland Guardians?
In what way? Like that they're in first?
Yeah, that they're in first place and probably have exceeded expectations, not dramatically so, but I don't know. I didn't have them. I didn't have them in this spot. Envisioning it.
If you would have said heading into the year they'd be in first right now, I think I would have said yes. I'm surprised. The thing is, though, it's a big part of that is because the White Sox have been so bad. And then even if we said, okay, in the middle of May, would you have been surprised? I would have said yes, and that's because the Twins were really good at the time, but they've been so bad since then. It's looking right now like a race to 85 wins or something, and they all get to play the Tigers and Royals a bunch and each other. So it's not a very impressive division. I think one area where you could say it swings in the Guardians' favor is Terry Francona in the dugout. That's a big, big deal. They've got McKenzie and Bieber atop the rotation. They have a good back into the bullpen with Miklasz, and now Karinchak has been really good the last 2 months. Probably the safest bet to win that thing. Maybe they can get a playoff series because it's only a 3-game series. And like I said, you've got Bieber and McKenzie there. You have a good back into the bullpen. But, man, it's just not a very impressive team for a playoff team. It's almost everywhere else you can find somebody really impressive, including the wild card races, but not in that division.
The Baltimore Orioles took it on the chin over the weekend. The Toronto Blue Jays went in there and really, really played impressively and beat them, swept the doubleheader, won the next game. And the Orioles are in bad shape as far as making the playoffs. But it's been a great year for them, all things considered. Matt Snyder, CBSSports.com, when you look at them and the players that they've graduated to the majors and they're more on the way, what kind of future do you think they really have? And I know you love baseball. How exciting has it been to see some of those young guys come up and do well?
Oh, it's been great. And it's I do have a soft spot for fan bases that have been suffering a lot because I grew up a Cubs fan. So I'm always going to, I want the Mariners to make the playoffs just so they can break the drought. And if we take out 2020, because it was only a 60-game season, if you looked at 18, 19, and 21, the Orioles, that's the worst 3-season stretch in baseball history in terms of them losing 115, 108, and 110 games. If you would have said heading into this year, what's their best case scenario, I would have said maybe winning 70 games, but it's more about what's Rutschman going to do at the big league level. Is Gunnar Henderson going to come up? Well, hey, look, they've got those two guys up. Henderson's only a week, so, we can't draw any conclusions yet. But Rutschman, you can tell, is the real deal. Probably going to finish second in AL Rookie of the Year voting to Julio Rodriguez, who's a generational talent. And what they're doing with a bunch of no-names in the bullpen and even in the rotation and their retreads, like Jordan Lyles in the rotation,
right,
or Dean Kramer in the rotation, it leads me to believe that Elias brought something over from the Astros in terms of pitching infrastructure where they're finding the best in what these guys can do. And it makes me think once they start adding, if you look at like the Astros turnaround, once they add guys like Altuve and Springer, and then they trade for Garrett Cole, they trade for Justin Verlander. Once they do stuff like that, all of a sudden it takes that team to another level. So the Orioles, they're stripped to the bones payroll-wise. Going into this offseason now, what are you going to add to this? You've got the pitching infrastructure. You've got the young talent in Henderson and Rutschman. What are you going to add to that to make them go to the next level? It'll be really interesting to see, but they've got big, big potential there.
Matt Snyder, CBSSports.com. I want to ask you this, as a Cubs fan and as a astute baseball observer, what was your opinion when the other day, Sunday, David Ross has a meeting on the mound, talks to the young, well, he's not that young, he's 26, talks to the left-hander, Brandon Hughes, and obviously told him, hey, man, we're here to compete. Go get them.
Yeah.
And Pujols hits it into St. Louis County. Were you mad as a Cubs fan? But as a baseball observer, what did you think of it? So you're wearing the fan hat, you're wearing the baseball analyst hat. So tell us how each side of you feel.
No, even from a Cubs fan perspective, the rest of this year is about preparing for 2023 and beyond. And if Brandon Hughes is going to be one of the high leverage relievers, which it looks like it might be, it looks like he might be one of the highest leverage left-handers they have moving forward. So he has to learn how to get big outs, even if it's a situation where you say advantage hitter. He's got to learn to pitch in a situation like that. He's got to learn to pitch with the game on the line. What better way than to learn against a lefty masher who's one of the greatest hitters of all time? I love saying, hey, I don't know what Ross said to him, but I love the general idea of saying, hey, go out here and compete. I'm not taking you out here. I'm not trying to baby you. I'm not leaving kid gloves on you. I'm saying, hey, go out and get this out, and I have confidence that you can get this out. And you know what? He didn't, but that's not the biggest deal in the world because they're not contenders anyway. So I loved it from that aspect, and from a baseball aspect, it was perfectly fine. I mean, it's not like they threw the game. Hughes has been really good this year, and it's not like his splits are totally skewed where it was suicide to let him face a righty. He's been really good against righties in a lot of big situations. So I was going to say, like, if anybody should be mad about that, I guess Brewers fans, but they're not going to win the division anyway. Yeah, whatever. I like I said, let the lefty go out and compete against a tough righty. Let the cards fall where they may, and if it has to be a teachable moment, let's have it be a teachable moment.
I totally agree with you. That was my thoughts too, and it reminded me of Felipe Alou in the 1998 home run battle between McGwire and Sosa. The Cardinals played the Expos down the stretch. I think it was actually the final week of the season they played them, and the final weekend. And McGwire hit Expos pitchers.
Oh yeah, that's when he hit like 5 home runs. Yeah.
And Felipe Alou was being questioned about, like, well, why didn't you pitch around him? And Felipe Alou said, "Look, we have young pitching staff. We're trying to raise competitors here. We don't want them to be cowards. We want them to learn. You've got to get tough hitters out. We're going to compete." And what
message does that send to anybody who's competing to say, "Hey, you should have just waved the white flag there"? Come on,
right? I know. Compete. So when Rossi did that the other day, who's a guy I really admire anyway, he did that the other day. I swear the first thing I thought about in this debate, as it were, or as it was Felipe Alou, because I was sitting in the room when he said that stuff, and I remember thinking, you know what, right on.
Yeah,
that's exactly the attitude it should be. Finally, if I can ask you one more, and not because you're a Cubs fan, but I'm honestly or genuinely curious about the team going forward. I think they've competed really, really hard. They got something going on there, but they obviously need more talent. How aggressive would you anticipate Hoyer and his crew will be in the offseason about bringing in, expensive, true impact players?
I honestly have no idea what to expect. They've said that they're ready to get more aggressive and to contend, so we'll see. But he hasn't been at the helm of a large market because, remember, he was the Padres GM just really briefly before he came over to take over the Cubs. But under the Cubs, when they were spending and they were trying to win, he was under Theo Epstein the entire time. So he hasn't been at the helm of a team ready to take the next leap here when he had these kind of resources at his disposal. It'll be very interesting to see. They've been weird this year. Like, they've been impressive in spurts, and then they've looked like the worst team in the league for spurts. And they kind of go back and forth. But there's been times, as you know, that they've had series with the Cardinals where they gave the Cardinals everything they could handle.
No doubt.
And then they'll turn around the next week and just look brutal. So it's, growing pains. But I think they're headed in the right direction. It's just, is the turnaround going to complete itself? So we'll see.
Matt Snyder, thanks again for being so good to us and coming on. Always enjoy our conversations. And please read Matt Snyder at cbssports.com. And please follow him on Twitter at Matt Snyder CBS. Until next time, be well, my friend.
All right, take care.
All right, that's Matt Snyder from CBS.